Infrastructure is incredibly important to countries around the world, with some spending tens of billions of dollars every year to fund their transportation, from public transit to highways. Many countries are known for their infrastructure, using it as a defining part of the look and feel of the country. United Arab Emirates has massive buildings across their skyline, and I'd bet if you imagine the country in your head, the Burj Khalifa is what comes to mind. Infrastructure is important, so highway systems come with this. Countries want to get their residents from point A to point B in the most efficient manner possible, and having smooth and extensive road systems is one of the best ways to accomplish that. So today I wanted to look at some of the world's most impressive and overall best highway systems, and try to decide who leads the pack. Before that though, I wanted to quickly ask if you would please consider subscribing to the channel. We make geography content like this every week, so if you're interested in the topics, this is the best way to let me know. It's really easy for you and it helps me out a ton. Thank you. So how do we find the best highway system in the world? Well, there are a few ways we can do it. You can simply look at it from an efficiency standpoint, checking the traffic levels in certain countries compared to their amount of drivers. This would show you which countries have designed impressive networks that carry their traffic in the best way possible, which is kind of what I'm going for here. You can also look at it from a safety standpoint, simply looking at the system that has the least traffic-related deaths per capita. This also would lead you into overall road quality, which is another very valid way to look at it. That would tell you which country upkeeps their roads the best, which also brings you to the top countries for road infrastructure spending. You could also just go by the largest network of roads, whether it be by overall or per capita. Some countries have very impressive interchanges, freeways, and toll roads stretching throughout their major cities and states. But this doesn't always equal the overall best network of roads. That's a very hard thing to just throw out there and make a claim at, since there's so many factors that lead into it. So because I try to keep my content non-opinionated, we'll just have to look through different countries to give an overview of why they might be in the running for this title. That way you can learn about the highway systems around the world and end up making your own decision on which one you think leads the pack. So let's start by looking at overall road quality, because that will help us find the countries with high-end and well-kept systems. In first place here would be Singapore, the city-state that I feel like is sort of cheating for this video because of its size. So Singapore has 101 miles of expressways running throughout the island. There are 11 real expressways, all with their own name and 3-letter abbreviation for each of them. The most major road is the Pan Island Expressway, or the PIE, which was built in the 1960s and runs 26.6 miles from one end of the country all the way to the other. Running through the downtown would be the AYE and the CTE. Now, these abbreviations mean that the expressways aren't numbered, but they don't really need to be in such a small country. Speed limits stretch anywhere from 56 to 43 miles per hour, which means it's a pretty slow highway system. And something very interesting I've found is how the interchanges have been built as land efficiently as possible to conserve space on the urban island. There isn't a single cloverleaf interchange, and the most dense stack interchanges are much more common. So that's about all there is to talk about for Singapore, which has a very high quality and well-kept road system. So moving down the list of best road quality would bring us to the Netherlands and Switzerland. Now both of these countries have their own claims to the title, but they also have problems. The Netherlands does have one of the most extensive road systems per capita, with a large network for the country's size and a very well-kept group of roads. But a lot more of the infrastructure budget ends up going into other areas, since the Netherlands really doesn't have that large of a car owner population. A lot of investment has been put into biking, as well as public transit, and plenty of funds have historically went into water management. This means, throughout the country's history, there hasn't been a focus towards creating a high-quality, extensive road system. Now, with Switzerland, nobody is denying the quality of things, but it isn't as well connected as other countries, and it hasn't worked around the terrain in any insane way that would make it more impressive than other networks. Now, though it isn't at the very top of our list for road quality, Japan is another country that has a very impressive road system. It's the second most expensive in the world, 4th highest quality, and 6th largest overall. It has done an impressive job at connecting the dense nation. The extensive national expressway system was built in the 60s and 70s, with coastal highways being given priority over the mountainous inland ones, which required steep inclines, winding paths, and large tunnels. Something I found interesting was how in some of the more rural areas, the national highways are still divided, but just one lane's on each side, with it being built in a way that would make it easy for another 2 lanes to be added. So that's our top 4 for road quality. But maybe our answer would come within the best road connectivity. This leads us to an absolute superpower when it comes to roadways, which is obviously the United States. So the US, where most of you probably reside, has the most extensive and connected road system of any nation in the world, with the state and US highways serving as offshoots to the interstate system, which carries 1/4 of the country's traffic, and stretches to pretty much every major city. Now, some Europeans that have used our roads have had some gripes, which include the speed limits, which are apparently lower here than they should be, but it's also said that they're so low because the quality of drivers is significantly lower than other places. There are 12.4 traffic-related deaths per 100,000 people, making it nowhere near the top of safest countries to drive. And people have also had their problems with law enforcement, which apparently enforces too much. I don't know, I'm not entirely sure what is meant by that, but European drivers were complaining about it. Either way, I don't need to be biased to say that it is easily one of the top highway systems in the world, with it also being the most expensive system as well, with well over twice as much yearly spending as the next best. Now that's about it for the US, so if we keep moving down our road connectivity list, the next best would be Saudi Arabia, a large country that keeps its cities connected very well. It has 138,000 miles of roadway, and though only 30,000 of these miles are paved, it doesn't mean that it isn't very extensive. There are a few knocks. It's said that though the city highways are well maintained, the rural highways are not. There's a large desert through the entire country, so in rural areas it's very difficult to account for every inch of road and combat the blowing sand and harsh conditions that can be found. It's just 30th overall in road quality, so though it's well connected, it doesn't tell the entire story. Now, so far I haven't mentioned one that is hard to ignore, which is Germany. Germany has been widely considered to be a high-quality country for roads, being home to the famous Autobahn, and there's a lot of truth to that. It groups right up with the US near the top of our list when talking about the best overall system, so let me tell you why. The Autobahn was built in the 1930s and onward, being the first example of limited access highways anywhere. Now, construction slowed over the next couple decades, with there obviously being a major war and economic decline, but they were slowly built and finished. Now, the Autobahn is considered by many to be the best highway system in the world, and the gold standard for freeways. Obviously, the most famous thing about them is how there's no speed limits. Now, this is somewhat true, with 70% of the system having no speed limit, and only a recommended limit of 130 kilometers per hour, or around 80 miles per hour. You're allowed to go over this number, and you see many cars going in the upper hundreds for miles per hour regularly. But this isn't what every single person does at all. Most of the time, it's going to average around 90 to 100 miles per hour. Now, when people say there's no speed limit, it makes you feel like it's an uncontrolled mess. But I actually think the rules sound a lot more uniform and enforced than the US. Once you get above 130 kilometers per hour, your liability in the event of an accident goes up increasingly depending on how fast you actually get. So this sort of discourages people from pushing as fast as they can. It's drive at your own risk. Most of these roads are 6 lanes total with 3 on each side. This helps the legal rule of no passing on the right for any reason at all. It isn't allowed and helps the slower traffic keep right and out of the way of drivers more comfortable going quick. Tailgating is also very illegal. So if you're going 200 kilometers per hour and get behind a slower car, you're just going to have to slow down. In construction zones or during certain weather events, speed limits can also decrease. Now, this is important because police will enforce it. They don't have to patrol every mile of the Autobahn, so those few miles of construction or anything like that actually do matter. You can and will get pulled over if you don't slow down. All of this turns into a network of roads that is actually quite well enforced and very controlled. It's just the speed limit that is pretty crazy. And it's actually quite safe as well, with just 3.7 traffic-related deaths per 100,000 people. If you remember the US from before, that was 12.4. So you can see a very major difference. No, going 200 kilometers per hour isn't necessarily safe, but the drivers here are used to all of it, and things end up working quite well. So, in the end, what's the overall best highway system in the world? Well, my personal opinion would push me towards either the US, Germany, or Singapore. The US has the largest and grandest overall network of roads, but it isn't insanely efficient or high quality. Germany has the Autobahn, which is a unique and efficient system of highways, and Singapore has well-kept expressways throughout the small country. Though I do think it's hard to consider such a small system to be the best. So maybe you just have to decide between the US or Germany. But that's for you to talk about in the comments. Thanks for watching. Thank you to the members this week: Makita Martinov, Kurt Ainsley, Yoshi Foods, Jerome McCall, Haystack, KMS162, Pol Pot Piehole, JL, Haystack, Sir JC17, Bryson, Dominic Psyche, Rosebud 4, Jeremy Jarvis, Christopher DeAngelis, Darkbird, Big Pasty, Jeremy Crone, Wolfing73, Snyder Twine, Florida Jake, Benjamin Wang's, Ryan Devons, and Haas of the Wolf. I appreciate you all so much. You help out the channel so much. If you want to become a member, the link is down in the description below. This is just another way to help me out as a person, so if you appreciate the content, that's the best way to help out. Thank you.